Greetings viewers, I'm your host and today we're going to be diving into the world of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. This series is actually going to be a little bit different. I was going through my Amiibo collection and I realized I have exactly 16 Amiibos that are compatible with this game, which is the perfect amount to hold an organized tournament for them. So that's what this is going to be. If that doesn't sound interesting, then you can just not worry about it. Because I also do not plan on commentating during the battles like I have in the past. It's just going to be pure gameplay aside from this first episode, which is just going to be rules. I'm going to be going over the rules of the tournament, and I'm also going to be briefly going over the Amiibos that are participating, so that way you can have an idea of their abilities and their statistics going into the matches. If you don't want to hear all the nitty-gritty, you can just skip to the next episode whenever that's ready, which will have the actual tournament. Because there won't be any fights during this episode other than these random spectator matches I have going, just so you have something to look at while I'm rambling on. Now, as for the rules of the tournament, it's going to be divided into 4 rounds. The first round is going to be a 4-player, 5-minute time battle. I haven't quite decided the stage yet, but they'll all be fought on the same stage, and things like items and such will be enabled. After the first round, the 2 players that score the best in each match of the first round will go on to the second round, which will be divided into 4 2-player 3-stock matches. After that, the winner of each of those, obviously, will go to the third round, which will be a little different because I wanted each round... I should have said this at the start, but I don't have a script or anything for this. But I wanted to say that each round I wanted to have different rules, so it's not just the same conditions over and over again. Which is why the second round will be one-on-one stock battle instead of a 4-player time battle. Third round goes back to 4 players and back to a time match, but it will be a team battle between all 4 of the remaining contestants. From there, we'll go on to the 4th and final round, which will be a 2-player stamina battle between the members of the winning team from round 3. So there's the rules of the tournament. As for the training of the Amiibos, all the Amiibos that are competing were started fresh and all went through virtually the exact same training regimens. Some of their levels will be a little bit different, either due to things like their battles that they were put through being different durations, and also some of them I had to feed more spirits to get their stats exactly how I wanted due to availability of spirits that worked well, and 1 or 2 of them I had to experiment a little bit because I was still kind of getting used to the whole thing. As for the training they went through, each Amiibo first had to compete in 2 matches on Battlefield against myself using their own character. So like if it was the Mario Amiibo, I used Mario. This of course naturally affected how some of them would turn out because of course I'm better with certain characters than others. So that would affect how well I could personally train them. After 2 battles under those rules, they would go to a similarly ruled battle also on forgot to mention that these battles also did not have items, and they consisted of 5 stock matches. All these that were 5 stock. After the 2 battles against myself using the character, they would then return to Battlefield, still no items enabled, and would have to battle a level 9 CPU also of themselves. Next, they would again return to Battlefield, but now some things would change because now they would be going up against 3 level 9 CPUs, so it was a 4-player free-for-all, and their CPU opponents were randomized, so the different Amiibos will have some varying experiences based on that, and also items were now enabled, expanding the intensity of the game a little bit as they trained. Don't know if that's an efficient way to train them, but it's how I approached this. After that battle was a similar one, 4-player free-for-all with level 9 CPUs, items enabled, but now it was at the Kalos League Pokemon stage. So now we were throwing stage hazards into the mix. After that was their final battle, which was returning to battling against me, once again using themselves at the Dreamland 64 stage with items still enabled. All 16 amiibos that will be in this competition have undergone that specific training and have not engaged in any other battles since. So that's all they've learned. They're all going in with roughly the same amount of experience, aside from perhaps experience with certain items or who their randomized opponents were, but those are the only major variables with how they were raised. With that said, I'm gonna cut from the spectator matches and go into the Amiibo screen so I can introduce you to the fighters you'll be watching. I'll meet you there. Contestant number 1 is Pikachu, also known as WWP, which I decided to have stand for World Wrestling Pikachu. I was kind of weird with some of these names. Also, you're going to be seeing a lot of Pokemon, because I am not an Amiibo collector by any means. I'm not one of those guys who goes out and tries to buy every single Amiibo under the sun. The only ones I go for are generally those that involve franchises I am especially interested in, and therefore they are collectibles that I would like to have on my mantle as an expression of myself years down the line when I'm perhaps no longer using these things for any functional purpose. Pokemon being one of my favorite video game franchises, naturally I've bought every single one of those that have become available so far, so you'll be seeing a lot of them. But I digress. Most of my Amiibos, first off, I gave them all neutral, style. I don't know if, there's type advantages with them like there are with Spirit teams, so I just wanted to have all them neutral. Most of them also have balanced stats of 2100 attack and defense, but each one I kind of try to approach either based on how the character plays or who the character is with their abilities, which is mostly what I'm going to be explaining here. In regards to WWP, naturally electric attack up because it's Pikachu. And I wasn't really sure what else I wanted to give it at first until I decided to go with the Libre costume and go with sort of a wrestler motif. So I gave it easier dodging and improved escape to kind of emphasize the idea of wrestling and grappling style combat. Not all of these are going to be the most efficient for the character, but I find it more fun to try and come up with themes based on not just what will make them efficient fighters, but also what will just make them interesting characters. If that makes any sense to people. With that said, I don't think there's really anything else more to add to this character, so let's move on to our next contestant in no particular order. Next we have Mewtwo, or as I extremely uncreatively named, Frieza. Because seriously, which Dragon Ball fan hasn't looked at Mewtwo and thought, that's Frieza? I don't think such a person exists. As for the abilities, I gave him Landing Lag and Insta Drop because of his floaty jumps. I know floaty jumps can be an advantage based on how you play and how you utilize them, but I've also felt like that can be a weakness because there are situations where you'll end up in the air and you want to land quickly. So with that in mind, I wanted to try to counteract Mewtwo's floatiness, but with the ability to get back on the ground quickly and efficiently when needed. So I gave him Insta Drop to get down there and then Landing Lag to kind of be able to recover from that more quickly. So the abilities not only complement needing to get out of the air when necessary from his floaty jumps, but also complement each other's effects. Next up we have Link, or as I named, Brandon. If you get that reference, you get it. If you don't, you don't. Another interesting thing about Link is he's kind of an exception to the rule I was mentioning before, because I'm really not that big of a Zelda guy. I don't hate the games, but 9 times out of 10 when I start a Zelda game, I get about 20 hours into it and then get bored before I finish. So it's not a franchise I've ever really been that into. I generally give them a chance, but never get through to the end. As for his abilities, I figured Link is a user of equipment. He depends very heavily on gear to get the job done rather than just raw skill. With that in mind, I wanted to focus on that first off weapon attack to increase the strength of his sword swings and special move power because a lot of his special moves involve utilizing the various techniques and items that are commonly weaponized by him in the games, such as the bow and the spin cut. And then, lastly, I gave him item gravitation to emphasize Link's constant searching for items. So it's kind of like he's pulling the items towards him in a quest to get more powerful and advance his journey to save Zelda. Except that's not part of this game, but I incorporated it into him anyway. Next up is Zero Suit Samus, who I named Cyber Ninja. And of all the amiibos I own, she is probably, I'm looking at him now, she is either my worst or my second worst as far as my personal use of the characters. Now with this character, at first I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to do with her. But then I started thinking, you know, Zero Suit Samus isn't really a fighter. I see her more as like an espionage sort of thing because her gun isn't very powerful, and even in Metroid Zero Mission, where she's used in the mainstream games, as well as the end of Metroid Other M, you're mostly having to sneak around and do things in the shadows. If you get detected, it's just run and try and survive. And that's where Jam Final Smash Charge came into play, because it's kind of like an espionage ability. You're disabling your opponent's efficiency to fight back in an indirect way that doesn't involve just punching them. Speaking of punching, but not punching, I also gave her foot attack up because almost all of her attacks involve kicks, and she's not the hardest hitter, so I wanted her to have some sort of improvement to her offensive abilities as well. Speaking of characters named after ninjas, next we have Greninja, who I named Phantom. I believe I just named it purely based on the color scheme. Not that I was basing off the comic book character Phantom, but I just felt like that was a suitable name for the colors I went with. As for his abilities, naturally Greninja being themed after a ninja, I wanted to give him ninja-like abilities, so I went with Lightweight, which improves his movement abilities, but makes him easier to launch. Like a ninja, they're good at staying out of danger, but they're in trouble once they get into danger. Then there's critical hit up. Again, like a ninja, their style is to hit decisively. They want their opponent down quickly in as few hits as possible, ideally without being noticed. And just like being able to have a chance of delivering critical hits, this allows Greninja to deliver such decisive blows like a ninja's assassination. And then easier dodging, again, going with the whole theme of ninjas not wanting to be detected and trying to avoid that at all costs, and being experts at doing so. And also goes with the whole speed theme that I kind of went with as well. Focused entirely on the ninja aspect, rather than worrying about what Greninja could actually do well, and just did what I could with that theme. Like I said earlier, I like to theme my characters sometimes rather than concerning myself with what's actually effective, because it's just more fun that way. Give my amiibos a little bit of character. Next up is Samus in her light suit, aptly named Light Suit. With Samus, I just, kind of like with Link, I was focusing more on her general abilities. And like with Link, she depends a lot on her acquired weapons and powers, so I went with special move power up so she can more efficiently use things like her charge shot and her trademark screw attack. Fire and explosion attack up I gave her as well to enhance her abilities because she has a wide variety of basic attacks. A lot of characters I feel like depend very heavily on one type of attack or another with their basic moves. But Samus is a bit more diverse with the kinds of attacks she has and the types of damage she can deal. So I decided to go with fire and explosion attack up just because I feel like those are her most like she has more of those than anything else with some of her smash attacks and her down tilt attack, and even her missiles deal that kind of damage. And I feel like those are good things to be hitting harder with. So I went with that. And then Strong Throw, I gave her strictly because, unlike some characters, she has a ranged throw. And with that extra distance to her throw, it makes her throwing a bit more accessible. And therefore, I wanted it to be powered up as well, while also going with the theme of strengthening her items. In this case, the grapple beam. Much like I powered up her other weapons with the special move power up. Next up is Mario, who I named Sid strictly because of his outfit. Another reference, if you get it, you get it. If you don't worry about it or ask in the comments. There's a way to get conversation going. Now with Mario's another character I don't use. I'm not terrible with him, but I don't actively use him. That being said, I had no idea what I wanted to do with him. So I just gave him general abilities that are good. Armor Knight is a powerful ability. It gives you increased attack power, greatly increased defense, but it lowers your movement speed. That in mind, I decided to experiment a bit with this character and combine Armor Knight with move speed up, so he has the benefits of Armor Knight, and his other ability counteracts Armor Knight's flaw. Now, I know I said that these were in no particular order, but really, who else could I have follow Mario other than Sonic? Which is weird because Sonic's faster than him. Unless you believe that video about how Mario's faster because of the pixels in the stages and how much ground he covers or whatever the crap. So here we have Blur Gembrace. Just a name I came up with based entirely on his bracelets, and I wanted to come up with a character that sounded like he would belong in the Sonic universe. As for his abilities, Sonic's all about running. That's what he does. He runs fast. And when he's not running fast, he's running faster. And even in this game, he has incredible running speed, so I wanted to focus on that. Give him easier dodging to complement his speediness in general, and I decided to give him both Impact Run, which allows him to deal damage when running past characters, as well as breaking ability up, so when he is running, he can stop more efficiently and either turn around or head off to do something else. He can come to a more abrupt stop. Just focusing all on that speed, and didn't really have anything else in mind when coming up with this character build. Because with Sonic, I feel like that's all you really need. Next up, we have Ridley, who I named Shredder. Probably because of his metal or something. I was kind of at a loss with this guy, not only with the name and which skin I wanted to use, but also his abilities. More so even than with Mario. So I just tried to come up with stuff to make him good, but also different. I gave him Jump Up to complement his aerial abilities a little bit, because he has more double jumps, which arguably makes having Jump Up less useful for him. But I wanted to complement his ability to fly in general. And then Physical Attack Up, because he does a lot of physical attacks, and Shield Damage Up, I gave him... one, because I don't have any other amiibos that have that. And secondly, he has a rapid attack, which if somebody's blocking that, their shield will get hit a ton of times. And so that's another reason why I gave him shield damage up. Also, because I just couldn't come up with anything. This is probably the character I had the hardest time coming up with something to give him. Especially because I didn't want to just have every character have the same broken abilities. Otherwise, I would have just given everyone super armor and call it a day. But that wouldn't be interesting now, would it? So, here's an interesting Ridley. Next up is Lucario, who I named Sir Auron. Another reference. Now, one of my favorite things about Lucario in this game is his aura mechanic. It just makes him a very interesting and unique character. I like characters like that. I like characters that have some sort of mechanic or gimmick that makes them stand out aside from just their moveset. And since he's the only character who has that, naturally I wanted to give him abilities that focus around that ability, just so I could have him set up in a way that no other fighter will be. With that said, I gave him Aura Attack Up since that boosts pretty much everything he does. Even his basic attacks deal aura damage. And then I gave him Trade-Off Ability and Critical Health Defense. So he starts injured but has higher stats, which is useful for his aura because the more injured he is, the more powerful his attacks become. And then critical health defense makes it so once he gets too injured, he gets a defense boost for a while to give him a bit more longevity and survivability to utilize his aura once it starts becoming more powerful. Sticking with the Pokemon theme, next we have a Pokemon trainer with the Charizard amiibo, who I named Darlene. And with this character, I wanted to really emphasize the Pokemon games in general, particularly the core games. So I gave her all abilities based on that. Special move power up because Pokemon battles involve exactly that. They involve using your Pokemon special moves to fight the opponent and generally nothing else, especially in the video games. So I wanted that to be a strength. And then I gave him stats up after eating based on, again, the video games, how you have items you can give your Pokemon and use on them during battle to make them stronger, like X attack or dire hit, stuff like that. It's also to represent like how they can eat berries that they're holding to restore health. So it's kind of combining those two things into one mechanic, basically. And then critical health attack up is based on the abilities of Squirtle, Ivysaur, and Charizard, which in the core Pokemon games, they have abilities that make their attacks stronger once they're injured. And that's exactly what critical health attack up does. So by giving them that, I'm effectively giving them their Torrent, Overgrow, and Blaze abilities in Smash Bros., just to a lesser effect. Next up is Megaman, who I named Item Man to go with the theme of items. Even more so than Link. He has the same item gravitation, but Mega Man's thing really is just shooting stuff, using weapons that he acquires, and I wanted to emphasize that as best I could, so I gave him increased thrown items, so when he throws certain items they're more powerful, and also shooting items up, which makes certain weapons like ray guns stronger and also gives them more ammunition. Just focusing entirely on Mega Man's theme of acquiring things and using those things to defeat other enemies and get more things. And you know, for being from my favorite video game franchise of all time, I really don't have anything more to say about him than that. Just a really straightforward amiibo that sticks to a specific theme based on the games he's from. And that's it. Next we have Ganondorf, who I named Ganny because that's the name I gave him way back in Melee. And it just kind of became a running joke between mostly myself and my brother, where we would always call him Ganny instead of Ganondorf. Now with him, I did something a little bit different. I changed up his stats a little bit. He doesn't have the 2100 even spread as the other characters because he's just so much of a powerhouse. I really wanted to emphasize that with his stats so he can hit that much harder. So I gave him higher attack power than defense. As for his abilities, I wanted to focus on his biggest weaknesses and remedying them. That being his speed and his terrible ability to recover when knocked off. So I gave him additional mid-air jump, increasing his survivability a bit, and then move speed up so he's not dragging his feet through the battlefield like he's wading through 10 inches of mud. Next up is Jigglypuff, who I named Cherry because of the red bow on her head. Jigglypuff being a very aerial heavy fighter, she's much more efficient in the air than on the ground, so I wanted to give her the abilities to push that to its full potential, increasing both her attack power and defense power while in the air, and also decreasing her landing lag, so when she returns to ground level, she can more quickly get back into the action. She's not left vulnerable for so long, which I assume will be nice because she should be spending most of her time in the air. But whether or not she actually does, that depends entirely on the amiibo itself. Next up, we have Yoshi, who I named Sunshine. And in my head canon for this Sunshine character, when I created it, when I got the amiibo back for Smash 4, it is a girl Yoshi. Not that that matters to any capacity, it's just something I decided because I felt like first I came up with the color yellow, because I think it was my second favorite of the choices, and I didn't want my amiibos matching the colors I use. Then I named it Sunshine based on the color, and then I came up with the gender being female based on the name. As for abilities, just whatever. I really didn't have much of an idea for this, so I just went with physical attack up because all of her attacks are physical pretty much. Strong throw because like with Samus, she has a ranged throw. And critical health defense up because why not? I don't even remember why I chose that. There's actually an interesting story with this amiibo. The only reason I even have a Yoshi amiibo was because of Yoshi's Woolly World. When the amiibos first came out and I saw what they could do in Smash Brothers, I thought this was awesome. The only two I had at that time were Pikachu and Samus. But I thought, this is awesome. You can like train it up. It'll get better at the game, blah, 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 blah. And I also knew from an announcement that Woolly World was going to be amiibo compatible. So I bought this Yoshi amiibo specifically because I thought it would be awesome when I don't have any friends around to be able to have an AI-controlled Yoshi playing the game with me when I'm by myself. Especially if I could teach it to do certain techniques that would allow us to progress through certain parts easier, or even be able to find secrets. Turns out that was a complete waste of time and money because the Yoshi amiibo in that game sucks. And is just, I don't even know why you would want to utilize that feature at all whatsoever. But thanks to that, I now have this combatant for the tournament, which otherwise I would be a character short for any solid tournament rules, and I would have to wait for more amiibos to come out to even do this. Wrapping up our roster, we have Donkey Kong, who I named Yeti Kong. No relation whatsoever to the Yeti character from the old Donkey Kong Country cartoon. I don't even think I knew that character existed at the time that I first created this amiibo back in Smash 4. I just named him Yeti Kong because I liked the white coloration and that made him look like a Yeti. Like with Ganondorf, I focused a bit more on attack power than defense, and I gave him abilities to emphasize his strengths, unlike Ganondorf where I focused on repairing his weaknesses. So I gave him hyper smash attacks, so his smash attacks will just hit that much harder, really just send people launching without having to build up their percentages very high. And then unflinching charged smashes, so he can build up his smash attacks more safely without trying to build one up and then just getting smacked. Now he can charge up, tank a hit, and then counter attack and just launch the person out of the battle. Nice and simple. Raw brute strength, nothing else. Because that's what Donkey Kong does best. With that said, next time we'll actually be getting into the tournament. I'll see you there. Except I won't. Because I won't be talking anymore.